The focus of my project is my maternal great-grandfather, Walter Felix Schneid, and his work on the home front during World Wars I and II. The fifth child of John Schneid and Mary Tice, Walter was born in southwest Syracuse, New York, on April 8, 1895. In 1911, after finishing the 10th grade at age 15, Walter took a summer vacation job at the Sanderson plant of the Crucible Steel Company in Syracuse, and ended up liking it so much that he did not return to school in the fall. Walter's career path into the steel industry came naturally. His father, John, started at the Sanderson Works plant after immigrating from Germany in 1880. He became a shop foreman and was eulogized as a pioneer in Syracuse steelmaking. Walter's older brother Raymond also made a career in the steel business, starting as a bookkeeper and working his way up to general manager. Walter's younger brother Alfred also worked in the steel mills until health issues forced him to change careers. Like many other industries experiencing mergers and acquisitions at the turn of the 20th century, the steel industry grew from smaller operations to larger, consolidated companies built for increased production capacity. In 1876, Sanderson Brothers and Company purchased Sweet Iron Works, and later in 1900, Sanderson Brothers joined 12 other steel companies to form the Crucible Steel Company of America. Walter worked at the Sanderson plant, which produced bar steel in the rolling mills. A rolling mill is a machine used to roll hot bars of stainless steel to required specifications. Each mill consisted of a pair of hardened steel rollers containing openings or slots of different dimensions. The hot bar of steel was squeezed back and forth between the rollers, compacting and lengthening the steel until the desired dimension was reached. This process is still used today. The Sanderson plant mainly produced steel bars for industrial tools, including cutting tools, screw elements, punch and dies, and custom knives. They also produced corrosion-resistant materials, used as fittings and flanges, and automotive exhaust valves. Walter worked as an apprentice roll turner, rolling and pulling red-hot steel into bars. He was paid 8 cents an hour and worked 45 hours a week, a fair amount of income for a 16-year-old in 1911. An important milestone in Walter's career occurred about 5 years after he started working with Crucible, when his mentor was transferred, and although he was very young for the job, he was promoted to roll turner at the age of 20. Along with this new responsibility, Walter began night school at the YMCA to learn mechanical drawing and blueprint reading skills. Encouraged by his supervisors, Walter even began training others in roll turning before he took on the role of rolling supervisor. My great-grandfather continued to learn new skills and worked his way up to new responsibilities, such as roll designer and molding. His work at Crucible continued, and Walter was exempt from service during World War I because steelmaking was deemed a critical occupation to the overall war effort. In 1920, Walter went to work with the Hammond Steel Company in Syracuse and became associated with Tom McLaughlin, the electric furnace melter at Hammond. Walter's career path was closely linked with Mr. McLaughlin from then on. Walter returned to Sanderson Works in 1922 to take charge of hot mill rolling. Mr. McLaughlin moved to Baltimore in 1930 as manager of Rustless Iron and Steel, and in 1932, Walter Schneid was hired by Mr. McLaughlin to become plant superintendent in Baltimore. At that time, Rustless had only 110 employees. 10 years later, the number of employees at Rustless had increased to 2,500. During World War II, Walter's occupation again exempted him from service in the armed forces. In 1942, his brother Raymond, now district manager for Crucible in Syracuse, hired Walter to return as the manager of Crucible's 7 rolling mill operations. So, Walter left Baltimore and returned to Syracuse with his wife Ellen and his 3 children, Joyce, Joanne, and my grandfather, Walter Schneid, Jr. One improvement Walter made was to put spell crews on the mills and hammers. One crew worked while the other took rest periods specified in the union contracts, and then the other crew rested while the first came back to work. Production increased, both management labor were pleased, and the improvements helped Crucible win the Army-Navy E Award in 1943. An Army-Navy E Production Award was the highest honor given to laborers for outstanding production of war materials. The E Award ceremony was broadcasted live on local Syracuse radio stations, June 4, 1943. Colonel Atwood, who presented the E Award to the management and employees of the Crucible Steel Company of America, said that war develops many needs for the high-speed alloy steels and cold-finished steels, for which the Halcombe and Emerson divisions of your organization are noted. This E-pin is an award for distinguished service on the production front. It symbolizes the gratitude of a nation at war. Steel industries provided raw materials for weapons, rails for railroads, and metals for planes, automobiles, and ships, which were considered essential contributions to the war effort. The Selective Service identified critical occupations that supported the war effort by producing materials soldiers depended on. In other words, those skilled workers would not be selected for military service overseas. In 1946, after World War II, Walter and his family moved back to Baltimore. He became vice president in charge of operations at Eastern Stainless Steel, and later became vice president and general manager and director of the company. Throughout his career, Walter tried to take a personal interest in all his contacts in the plant, as his supervisors had done for him. Every morning for the last 40 years of his career, Walter contacted supervisors in their departments and discussed plans and problems on the spot. He is fondly remembered as a true engineer, a problem solver, generous with his skills, knowledge, compassion, and respect for others.